Hi lovies, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you clicked on today's video. It's very weird having everything packed up right now. We are in the process of moving. We're moving very soon. But I thought it'd be really fun to do one last reading vlog here in Colorado. And I thought to myself, what better video, what better time to do our annual swapping my phone screen time with a reading video. If you've been around for a while, you kind of know this is routine on my channel. I do this reading challenge at least once a year. And I tend to do it at the beginning of every year because that's usually when my screen time is at its highest, and I think it's just because after the holidays and kind of being in the rut of winter time, that's when I'm scrolling the most on my phone. I try not to do it just because I feel like when I do get into those scrolling habits, I waste so much of my day away, and I hate feeling like I wasted a perfectly good day away. Even though social media is such a big part of my life, you guys would actually be so surprised at the amount of time I spend off of it. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to spend time away from your phone, away from social media, because there's so much life to be living. I'm not trying to sound like cliche or anything, but the main point for today's video is to be swapping my phone screen time with the reading for an entire week. I always like to do this video because I find that it helps me get off my phone, but it also helps me kind of get back into the groove of reading, because I also feel like at the beginning of every year, I also get into this weird reading slump. Whenever I do this video, it kind of kickstarts my year of reading. Basically, I literally look forward to this video every single year. We are gonna hop right into the video, and we're gonna start by assessing my screen time analytics, which is always pretty funny to me. It's also just always like enlightening to myself, because I'm like, what am I doing for hours on end in these apps? I'll put my little screenshot here for you guys to check it out. My total screen time is 32 hours and 6 minutes. That's more than an entire day's worth spent on my phone. I've wasted over an entire day just scrolling on my phone. That is not okay. That is so bad for me. My average phone time is 4 hours and 35 minutes every single day, which isn't the worst. I feel like when you look at the average time, it's really not that bad, because I'm like, oh, 4 hours. Like, that's not too bad. But once we get into the days, you kind of see how bad it actually gets. My most used apps, Safari with 4 hours and 30 minutes. I can't really explain this except for maybe I was on Safari looking for different things while moving. Next up, this is the culprit that I just don't like this one. I spent a total of 4 hours and 18 minutes on TikTok. Not that I don't like TikTok, because I do think it is such a fun social media platform, and I do have fun with it myself occasionally, but it also gets so addicting because the videos are so short, so it's really easy to get sucked in and just keep scrolling for hours on end. And I also just find, again, that it like wrecks my attention span. Next up, we have my messages app at 4 hours and 3 minutes. I'm not really mad about that. Instagram, we have 3 hours and 47 minutes. It's not the worst thing ever. YouTube is at 2 hours and 32 minutes. This is actually way higher if we were counting like my TV time, because I actually watch YouTube mostly on my TV. The Mail app is 1 hour and 56 minutes. Last but not least, we have my Notes app at 1 hour and 39 minutes, which isn't very surprising just because it's where I do the majority of my planning and I make to-do lists and all that good stuff. The two main culprits are definitely TikTok and Instagram. Those are the two social medias that I just try to limit myself with because they do get so addicting. Those are my averages for the entire week though, and starting strong on a Monday. Today we are going to be reading for a total of 5 hours and 35 minutes. Culprits for me on this specific Monday is my Notes app at 54 minutes, my Messages app at 40 minutes, and the Safari app at 36 minutes. We do have Instagram and YouTube in there also around the 30-minute mark, but that's not really too bad for me. 5 hours and 35 minutes is the total amount of time we are going to be reading today, and to be completely honest, that might be enough time for me to finish an entire book, which is super exciting. We're gonna hop right into the reading vlog though. It is so chilly out today, guys, so I feel like it's the perfect time to really like curl up with a good book and spend the whole day reading. The first book that we are gonna start with is The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. What really drew me to this is that it's basically a mix of Bridgerton, The Cruel Prince, and The Selection. I'm sorry, that sounds like a dream come true. I am obsessed with Bridgerton. I'm a huge Bridgerton girly. It's all about a girl named Ivy who is making her debut into the season. If you know what that means, if you've seen Bridgerton before, basically she is entering society, preparing to marry and start a family. In Ivy's case though, I think there's some type of scandal or something is up with her family and her background that is kind of tainting their reputation at the moment. So I know Ivy and her family are super nervous about this season because they don't know if it's gonna affect her in finding a husband. But this season is unlike any other because Ivy gets the chance to possibly marry the Queen Faye's son. I also know the prince has a brother who I think is like the opposite of him. His brother kind of gives off more of like a darkish, grim type of vibe. And I feel like his character is really gonna get me because when it comes to reading books, I don't know what it is. I'm always like rooting for the morally gray character. I don't know why, but those are always my favorite characters. There's gotta be some type of love triangle in here. I think I'll be really disappointed if there's not. Also just hoping for some really good banter. I'm really excited though to jump into this, see what it's all about. I'm definitely taking a chance with it because it is just a random book I picked up at the store and I really didn't know too much about it, but I have our timer all ready. If we read straight through, we should finish up at 9:30 tonight. Fingers crossed that it's a good one. Okay loves, we are doing our first little check-in. I made it to 1 hour and 24 minutes to go. Guys, I'm not kidding you when I say I think this might be one of my top reads of 2025, which I know it's so crazy to say. This book is probably one of the best and most fascinating romantasy books I have read in the longest time. First things first, we have made a pretty big chunk. I am on page 267. We only have this much to go. We have 1 hour and 24 minutes left to go for the night. I honestly think I can finish this book because I've been flying through it all day and I am just obsessed with this story. Like, even if I don't finish it in the time that we have, I'm going to finish it tonight. Throne of Glass was the last fantasy book I read and I rated it 4 stars. That was a great book. This book, 10 times better. I already know this is going to be a 5-star read. Honestly, if we could rate it higher, a gazillion stars. I don't even know where to start. I read this much without checking in because I was just like immediately transported into these pages and I feel like I got so lost in them for the past 4 hours that I forgot I was even filming or living the life that I'm living right now, which I love. This is such a cool and fascinating storyline to me. It's honestly not what I expected, but I have really enjoyed pulling little things from The Cruel Prince, the selection, as well as Bridgerton. The Bridgerton vibes in this, so perfect. The gowns, the balls, the princes, the queen, everything about it is just like screaming Bridgerton, and it's really just because it takes place in the 1800s, so it's just that time period, you know. Ivy is our main female character. She is honestly amazing. I love everything about her so far. I think she is such a strong and independent female lead. The thing I love most about her is that she has such a crazy and fun imagination, and right right from the beginning, you can tell that she really sticks out compared to the other girls in the competition because she's just always been fascinated with fairies, the other world, and going off and doing something for herself instead of, you know, finding a husband, becoming a wife, the traditional stuff she's expected to do. She just never had interest in it, and you could just tell from the start that she is such a special character. Well, Ivy kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. You know, she isn't the most proper girl. She doesn't know the proper etiquette sometimes. She doesn't dress the fanciest. She doesn't have the best shoes or the best hair, but she sticks out because she knows all these other things that the girls don't know. She knows how to start a little fire. It's just a bunch of little things like that where Ivy really stands out because her family also kind of have like a poorer side to them, where most of these girls come from money and luxury. Ivy, on the other hand, kind of comes from something a little bit different, and I do think it's because of the scandal that is kind of circulating around her family right now, which is also such a crazy story in its own. The way this story starts off, honestly, is so good because it kind of revolves around Ivy's sister. Basically, the events that take place around Ivy's older sister is kind of what leads to this big scandal with her family, and ultimately it leads us to Ivy and her crazy but incredible storyline. Anyways, Ivy is entering her first season. It's her debut to hopefully find a husband, and we kind of already touched base on this in the beginning, but the queen's son is looking to find a wife. He's looking to marry, which is a huge deal, and Ivy is one of many girls who steps forward to hopefully win his hand. Kind of gives off like Bachelor vibes in my opinion, which again leads us to the selection series because it's a very similar idea there. So the whole story mainly revolves around that, but we also get this really fun action-packed side to it where there's kind of like a rebellion against the crown because the queen, the prince's mother, she is a fae and she has these magical powers and she kind of uses them not in the best way. So a lot of people don't really like her, a lot of people fear her. She's almost like an evil queen. So there is this rebellion aspect in the story where they are trying to overthrow the queen, overthrow the crown. They also have our morally gray Prince Emmett, who is, I believe, the younger brother to Prince Bram, who is looking for a wife this season. Their whole dynamic and connection is very interesting because they're technically like step brothers. They're not blood related. Emmett is human while Bram is fae. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to spoil this story because it's so good. Basically, Emmett is our morally gray prince, and he is actually more in this story than I anticipated. Again, I had no idea what I was really getting into when starting this book, but Emmett's storyline is also so good, and he kind of keeps you on your toes the entire time because you're just like trying to figure him out and figure out the whole time what his motives are, where he's coming from, like past wise. I feel like there's a lot that happened to Emmett in his past and we're slowly unpacking it throughout the story. I think his whole like past story is really interesting, like his origin story, I guess you could say, and then his dynamic with Ivy. I'm so unwell. It's so good, guys, and there's some really good banter in here that really gets me. Just like the whole dynamic between Emmett and Ivy, I am living for. It's just so good. He's definitely one of my favorites. He is one of the more fascinating characters in this, and then also just the competition overall between Ivy and these other girls. It's so crazy. There's like these crazy twisted games that the girls are competing in. It's so cool to read a book like this because I haven't read something like this in such a long time. It feels like it's definitely one of my favorite books of 2025, but it's also going to be like my first 5-star of 2025, which is super exciting. We have about 100-ish pages to go. It's gonna be crazy and twisted, and I have a feeling we are going to leave off on a cliffhanger just because it's that type of book, guys, where you just know. I'm loving this so much. If you haven't heard of this book or seen it, I highly recommend giving it a try. It is so fun. It's so good. I feel like it can honestly be like one of the top books of 2025. I just feel like it hasn't hit enough people's radar yet, but it is just giving off all the best vibes. We are gonna hop right into it, finish it up, and then come back and briefly talk about it because I feel like I just gave you my full review and rating and I haven't even read the end of it yet. Like, we still have a little bit over 100 pages to go. So much can happen. Okay guys, we finished the rose bargain. 5 stars. Are we surprised? I knew it was going to be 5 stars. This ending, I don't know what I expected, but it definitely wasn't what we got. And the way that things kind of wrapped up in the end and like the little like plot twist we got, I shouldn't even say little. It was huge. It was a really, really big plot twist. And now I have to wait a whole year to find out what happens next. Wow. It's like one of those books, when you finish it, you just like want to scream. This is going to be a book that is stuck in my head for a very, very long time. It's one of those reads where you just can't stop thinking about it, and I know I'm going to be thinking about these characters for the foreseeable future. And the romance we got in here, I don't know how I'm supposed to move on from this right now, to be completely honest. I'm happy that we're ending the night off with this book and I can kind of sleep on it, and then obviously we'll jump in to book 2 tomorrow. But your girl's really shook right now with what she just read in this. It was so good, guys. It's hard to do reading vlogs like this because I obviously want to keep them as spoiler free as possible. This was incredible. Go read this book right now. Go pick this up. Go find it on Kindle. It's addicting. You'll love the characters. The storyline is so fun and fascinating, and again, I just love how it ties together so many of my favorite fantasy books. There's just so many little things in here that I was picking out where I'm like, oh, this kind of reminds me of The Cruel Prince, or oh, this reminds me of The Selection. There were even parts of it where I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Just such a fun and like high stakes romantasy, and I cannot wait to see what happens in book 2. This book literally has you on your toes the entire time because it is very high stakes, the things that are happening in it. The competition part, romance part, the fantasy, fairy part, everything about it was just so fun to me, and I'm so happy I started this reading vlog with it. But at the same time, I'm kind of nervous because this is going to leave me with very high expectations for our next reads in this video. I feel like this really could be like the next big time fantasy book. You know how we had like Divine Rivals, Powerless, Fourth Wing, those types of books flying off the shelf? This book should be flying off the shelves right now because it's seriously so good. It's amazing. Please pick this up and give it a try. I have so many theories for what's gonna happen in book 2, but I'm also like so nervous, and my heart also hurts with the way it ended because obviously it didn't, you know, end off on a perfect note. But this is gonna be a very, very hard book to top. Favorite book so far of 2025. We're gonna get unready together while I still process probably one of the best books of my life. I don't really know how I'm even supposed to move on from the Rose Bargain and also wait a whole year to find out what happens next, especially after the crazy cliffhanger. I'm unwell, but we're gonna do some fun skincare, and you guys already know Curology is my fave. They happen to be the sponsor of today's video, but you guys already know I talk about them all the time on my channel, and I've been using them for years because I just genuinely love their products. I started using them back in 2020 because I was having a ton of like stress breakouts, and I had seen a ton of my friends and other people raving about Curology, so I decided to give them a try, and it's honestly crazy the difference their products have made for my skin. I feel like I've really been able to reach all of my skincare goals over the past few years with them, and on top of achieving my skincare goals, they've also like simplified my skincare routine overall. Instead of having like an 8-step routine, which is so annoying, I literally only use these 2 products and they do wonders for my skin. Once I remove my makeup for the day, I go in with my Deep Cleanse RX, and this is just my daily cleanser that is personalized to me. It really helps clear out my pores and leave my skin feeling fresh for the night. Then I go in with my Custom Formula RX, and this is where the real magic happens. With a Custom Formula RX, it helps clear your skin with acne busting ingredients picked for you. I've always thought that it is so cool that Curology provides RX products that are personalized for you, and how they do this is you take a quiz online that is designed to understand your skincare concerns, learn about your skincare history, and help you achieve your goals. They make the whole process so awesome too because you literally get to skip the dermatologist's office and get the prescription to your skincare needs. Whether it's treating acne or uneven skin texture, your Custom Formula RX is made for your skin goals, all while helping to keep your skin fresh and clear. I'll have a link in my description for you guys to check out Curology for yourself and get a special offer on your first box. Could not recommend them enough, guys. They are such a game changer when it comes to skincare. I've literally been using using them for years, so trust me on this. But I'm gonna finish getting unready for the night, probably just hang out with Chris, watch some TV, and then we are going to jump in to day 2 tomorrow morning. Happy day 2, everybody. It is Tuesday and we are going to keep rolling with the reading vlog for today. We're going to be reading for a total of 4 hours and 35 minutes, so exactly 1 hour less than yesterday. On this specific Tuesday, my main culprit for being on my phone for so long was the Safari app with 58 minutes. Spending 58 minutes in Safari and that being like the most time I spent in an app that day, it just doesn't seem bad to me. My second most used app was my messages app with 33 minutes. App number 3 is Instagram with 23 minutes, and following that is TikTok with 16 minutes. Honestly, not mad about that. I feel like that is such a good and healthy spot to be in, spending, you know, 15 to 20 minutes on social media a day. We are going to be starting book number 2. If you're wondering, I am still hung up on The Rose Bargain. I think I will be for the foreseeable future. I thought about that book all last night, and even when I woke up, I was still thinking about the ending of it and like trying to come up with different theories and ideas for what's going to happen in book 2. We are keeping up the fun fantasy romantasy genre, and we're going to be jumping in to Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. I feel like I mess up her name every time, but oh my gosh, I am so excited for this book. Book 1 is Heartless Hunter. It came out last year and I actually did read it in a reading vlog. Ironically, I read it during my moving vlog last year. Kind of funny that I'm literally in the moving again and we're about to read book 2. Patiently been waiting for this book. I'm so happy and excited to have it in my hands finally, because the way that Heartless Hunter left off, the cliffhanger, guys, the cliffhangers that fantasy books leave us on. Why do they all have to do that for us? It's like every time I start a new fantasy book, I have to mentally prepare myself for a crazy cliffhanger, because 99% of the time they always leave us hanging. Anyways, I am a book of the month member and I think this was like a special add-on, and obviously I added it on because I was so excited about it. But I also think because it's like a special add-on, I actually got it a few days early, like ahead of release. So that was also just like super cool in my opinion. Rebel Witch, book 2. I'm so excited. If you read Heartless Hunter, you already kind of know what's happening and what we're kind of getting into in book 2. But if you haven't read it, it's another really, really fun fantasy book in my opinion. It's a YA, it's a romantasy, and there's so much like action in it. I also think because it's like a witchy type of fantasy, I also just really enjoyed it a lot more, because there's something about reading about witches and magic that just brings fantasy books to life in my opinion. Our FMC in that is Rune, and she basically is like a witch in hiding. The society that she lives in despises witches. It's like banned to be a witch and practice magic, and if you get caught, you don't really keep going. You don't really keep moving forward in life. So right off the bat, we're entering into a very high stakes type of world for Rune because she's a witch in hiding. On top of that though, her character is so fun and unique because she is also known as this bubbly, rich socialite in society. Everyone knows who Rune Winters is. She is beautiful, she's funny, and she also comes across quite dumb at times. But that's just, you know, the character she puts on, so no one ever suspects her of being a witch. And on top of that, while she's going to lavish balls and being a fun little socialite during the day, at night she turns into the Crimson Moth, which is this witch vigilante where she goes out at night and she tries to save the witches that have been caught. Her entire character throughout the whole book I just thought was so interesting and different, because she's playing so many different characters, and then on top of it all, she also starts to mix all of those characters together when she starts to catch feeling for our MMC, who is Gideon. And naturally Gideon is the most heartless, ruthless witch hunter there is. The fact that that is our MMC is absolutely wild and should honestly intrigue you enough, because it's you know, they shouldn't work, obviously. The story was also really unique and fun in itself because they're both fake courting each other. They both have like this motivation towards one another to catch the other one in the act or catch them doing something. There's so many crazy plot twists. There's lots of magic. There's lots of action. There's also so much more to the story too on deeper levels. You get a lot of backstory on Gideon and Rune. I think they both are such beautifully written characters. They're so unique. Hopefully everything works out for everybody in the end. I don't know how it possibly can. It seems absolutely impossible right now, but nonetheless, I'm very excited. I've read for about 2 hours and 30 minutes. We still have another 2 hours to go, but I wanted to kind of take a break and talk about this book with you guys because I made it to chapter 18, page 117. Lots of crazy stuff is happening. Honestly, it's kind of escalating way quicker than I thought it would. I thought we were gonna have a lot more time between our characters kind of coming back together and jumping into like the main storyline, but something I really like about this author, and I remember really enjoying in book one, she wastes no time, guys. Like, she immediately jumps in to the action and adventure. It's honestly been so fun and crazy already, but just in these 100 pages, like, so much has happened. Plans have changed already, and we are going on the main adventure, main quest of the story, I think. Obviously, I can't say too much because it's book 2 in the series and I don't want to spoil like anything from book 1, but our two main characters, Rune and Gideon, lots of things have definitely changed since book 1. I think their characters have also changed a lot. Rune was very like sneaky and witty, and I feel like Gideon was the same, but he was also very sharp. In book 2, we're kind of watching like his strings loosen up a little bit, especially when he's around certain characters, and I just think it's been really interesting. Lots of crazy stuff has like already happened in these first 100 pages, and I have to say the first even 20 pages of this had me shook the way that the book started off. I kind of was a little nervous at first because I'm like, where is this really going? In the last like 20 pages, it really started to take off and our main story kind of got set for us. I'm really excited to see kind of what happens and how everything unravels. I have a lot of theories that relate to it and relate to Rune specifically. I feel like there's a lot of things we don't know about her character, and she also doesn't know it yet. So I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of see Rune rediscover herself in this story and find out things that maybe she didn't know before. I also feel like we're going to find out some very crazy things about our side characters in this story as well. I feel like there's a lot of secrets kind of being hidden right now. But we're on chapter 18. We're only a little over 100 pages in. I find when I sit down for long periods of time to read, specifically in like the middle of the day when it's still sunny out, I get like into this weird rut where I start to read a lot slower, and I think it's because when the sun is out, I naturally want to be outside or be out doing something in the sun, even though it's far too cold to be outside right now in Colorado. While I was reading this, I kept catching myself like looking out the window, looking at the pool, looking at the sun. I had to like reel myself back in multiple times, so that's like a me problem. It's definitely not a book problem. We are gonna keep going. We have 2 more hours to go for today's reading portion, and I'm hoping I can make it to at least part 2 in this. I saw that it's divided up into parts. Part 2 will take us to page 181. I should be able to read a lot more than this in the next 2 hours, but we will see. Never say never. I feel like so much has happened already. I really really don't know what else could really happen next, but I'm very excited. It's definitely keeping me on my toes. Happy day 3, everybody. Today is Wednesday and we are gonna keep rolling with the vlog. We touched base last night. I had 2 more hours to go and I did read for the full 2 hours and made it a lot farther than I thought I would. I made it to chapter 33, page 207. We made it a little bit into part 2 of the book. So much crazy stuff has been happening, and as I keep reading this, I remember why book 1 drove me so freaking crazy, because the miscommunication between our characters in this story and in book 1, I'm actively getting frustrated while reading the book. Not that I'm not enjoying it. I'm actually enjoying this one a lot more than book 1. I just feel like there's so much more between our 2 main characters. In book 1, you know, it was a lot of like getting to know each other, a lot of faking each other out. There just seems to be like a lot more depth to our 2 main characters and the relationship between the 2 of them as well. And also the unresolved feelings and all the craziness that happened in book 1. We're kind of seeing the aftermath of that in this one. The banter and the angst that we're getting in book 2 is so good. It makes all the craziness and miscommunication from book 1 so worth it. We are still getting a lot of miscommunication in this book and a lot of secrecy, a lot of, you know, betrayal. I feel like the betrayal aspect is actually what really drives me crazy in these books. Why do they gotta do that? You know, why do they gotta do that? We know they don't want to do that. We are like fully in our story now. For day 3 though, we have to read for a total of 1 hour and 59 minutes. So basically 2 hours on this specific day. Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest were the main culprits, but as you can see, I didn't really spend a lot of time on them. Instagram was 29 minutes, YouTube was 23 minutes, Pinterest was only 8 minutes. Pinterest is also like the only app where I'm like, it's okay if I scroll on Pinterest. That was only 8 minutes. I spent 8 minutes in my mail app and 6 minutes in Safari. We didn't really spend a lot of time on our phone on Wednesday, which honestly was a pretty good day in my opinion. 2 hours is like not bad. We're gonna keep the ball rolling though and read for 2 hours today. Hopefully make another big chunk and dent into this book. I guess just see what happens. There is like so much happening in this book compared to book 1. I feel like we're definitely getting a lot more action and adventure in here, which I really like. You know, I really love in fantasy books when there's like a lot of like action, fight scenes, stuff like that. There's also just like so many high stakes scenes that we've already gone through in this book, and it's only been 200 pages. The beginning of this has already been quite the roller coaster, so I can't even imagine what the next half is gonna be like. I was literally crawling into bed and I was like, I didn't do like end of the day update with you, so wanted to sit down before I went to sleep for the night because I am so exhausted from just spending the day like packing and cleaning up the apartment. But I wanted to do an update. We read for 2 hours total. I made it to page 304. We officially made it to part 3 of the book, which I do believe is like the last part of it. And I have to say, just in the last like 120 pages, all the emotions, guys. I was feeling all of the emotions. I was in love, I was mad, I felt betrayed, I was crying at one point. Automatically game over for me. I already know this is going to be a super high rated book. I'm definitely enjoying this a lot more compared to book 1, but again, it's just because we're getting so much more between our characters. There's so much more depth to it in my opinion. What a roller coaster of a story, to be completely honest. Book 1 was really just the setup of everything, and book 2 is really where all the action and emotion comes in. For today's little reading portion, we read I think a little over 100 pages, and again, just like so many emotions were coming out of these pages for me, and I feel like again so much happened just in these 100 pages, and I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen next? Like, how is the story gonna wrap up? As of right now, I'm very conflicted on like what's gonna happen next. There's so many plot twists that can happen, and I just just don't know if I'm ready for any of it. And we've already had like so many crazy plot twists. I do have to say I was really proud of myself because a theory I had in the beginning of this story, I actually ended up being right on, and I thought it was just really cool and almost rewarding when it was officially verified for me. So many other crazy things have happened though that I didn't expect to happen. The main thing I love about this story though, and this whole series, is that the romance in it is like the main part of it, but it doesn't feel like it really takes away from the story. You know, when you read a really heavy romance and it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of good story or depth to it because the romance kind of overpowers it all. That's not how I feel at all with this book. I feel like we get the perfect amount of romance in this story where I'm not underwhelmed or overwhelmed with it, and it's mainly because the story itself just has such a strong and solid plot and timeline. I'm just really wowed because I remember when I was reading book one, I was a little skeptical because of the miscommunication trope, the betrayal, like the things that were happening in book one was just driving me mad. And when we started this one, we were kind of getting a taste of that again. It honestly isn't at all. I feel like this is so drastically different from book one, and I'm just enjoying it so much. I can't wait to finish it up and see what happens. I'm hoping tomorrow we can actually finish it up because tomorrow is a really hefty reading day, and you guys will find out. You'll see what I mean very shortly, but this is absolutely incredible so far. If you haven't picked up these books yet, I highly recommend. I feel like book one wasn't my all-time favorite fantasy book, but book two really makes it worth it. No joke. I am so happy that I read book one when it came out because the stuff we're getting in book two just really makes up for everything that you want and crave in book one, and I just feel like so in love with these characters and this storyline right now. Definitely feel like it's going to be a 5-star, which is kind of crazy because our first book was a 5-star and we might have another 5-star, and these are my first 5 stars of 2025. So already I feel like this entire reading vlog is off to such a good start. It's going very nice and smoothly, but at the same time it makes me very nervous to pick out book 3 because we're kind of on a roll and I don't want to like mess it up. I'm literally obsessed with Rune and Gideon in this story. They are so much better than their characters in book one. There's so much character growth and I just love everything about them in book 2. Chris and I are gonna crawl in bed for the night, probably watch a cozy movie, and I'll talk to you guys in the morning. Hi lovies, happy day 5, I want to say. I am all jumbled up right now. As you can see behind me, the bookshelves have officially been packed up. They have been disconnected because I had the little corner shelf there, and we are officially in our very last night in our Colorado apartment, which feels so weird. It's always so weird when your whole home is packed up and it's the last night you're staying in it. But I wanted to do our very last check-in for today's video. Unfortunately, I think I'm gonna call it here just because the last day I was gonna film ended up being so crazy. Like, we had to finish packing up everything. We had to take TVs off the walls, take pictures down. If you have moved before, or if you're also moving like me, you know how crazy and hectic it gets. I am so exhausted from literally everything. So I think this is gonna be our last little check-in and our last official reading vlog clip in Colorado. Let's do a little recap. So yesterday was Thursday. I think this is why I got so overwhelmed and tired today with packing, because yesterday we actually ended up reading for a total of 6 hours and I want to say like 30-ish minutes. We did complete Rebel Witch. I believe there's a clip in this video of me sobbing. I don't know if I put the whole clip in. Honestly, it was kind of embarrassing. I bawled my eyes out at the end of this book. 5 stars. You guys know it pulled so much emotion out of me, and this overall, what a beautiful masterpiece of a story. I'm so content and happy with how the entire story went, especially the ending. I thought it was such a good wrap up and conclusion to everything about this. The characters, the side characters, the villains. I loved every part of it. I sobbed like a baby at the end. This is definitely one of my favorite reads of 2025 alongside The Rose Bargain. I can't believe we have 2 5-stars in this video. I'm so happy for us. Both books were absolutely amazing and exceeded my expectations, to be completely honest, because I did not think I was going to be obsessed with this one just because book 1, it wasn't like my favorite fantasy ever, so I didn't really know what to expect going into book 2, and it just was absolutely incredible. Rune and Gideon's story and all the side characters we get in this story. Wow. Beautiful conclusion, beautiful story. Could not recommend it enough, even if you're kind of iffy on book 1 like I was. Book 2 is so good, and it makes book 1 worth it. Since we had to read for a little over 6 hours yesterday though, I did jump in to a third book, which is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and this is actually a book that I've had on my shelf for quite some time, but I've kind of shied away from it because I didn't really know if I would like the storyline, but I liked the idea of it at the time when I picked it up, and I think I've been a little bit hesitant because I didn't know if there was going to be like a good solid romance in it. At heart, I'm a romance girly. I love romance, and when I go into books that aren't strictly romance, if there isn't just a little bit of something in there, I kind of get bored. The cover is so pretty, and I thought, you know, why the heck not? I'm gonna start it in this video because it may just end up being another incredible 5-star read like Rebel Witch, like The Rose Bargain. So I started this right after Rebel Witch, and it's basically about this girl, Emily Wilde. She basically is a professor from Cambridge, but she is studying fairies and fairy lore. She ends up traveling to a small town to actually study the fairies and things there because they're supposed to be very rare and there's not like a lot of information on them yet, so she wanted to be the one to go and explore them. And then her academic rival actually shows up in town too. That is our MMC in the story, Wendell Bambley. I don't know too much about it just yet because I didn't make it that far in this book yesterday. I think her and Wendell are going to start working together on something. Those are all my little reading updates for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. I'm so sorry that we are cutting it short. Just hang in there as soon as we get to our new home and we get settled. I can't wait to start rolling with all the reading vlogs again. For today's video, let me know down below how much time you spend on your phones. I just think it's crazy that I spent over 30 hours on my phone in a week. So please share your screen times down below. And with all of that being said, I love you guys so much. Thank you for hanging out with me in today's video, and we are logging off for the final time in Colorado. Next time I see you guys, we will be in a new home.